Welcome meme, welcome meme. How's it? Oh, I get on my phone out of frustration. Oh, hey, well, you can relax, listen to me, and maybe fall asleep. I would ask you how you're doing, but you're probably a little, angsty because you can't sleep. But you know, I'm here now. But welcome, welcome. Trying to see. Hold up. Okay, where is? There we go. There we go. What? What's broken right now? Is it this one? Which one broken? That's not the right one. What's this one? Okay, then. No, where is? There we go. But, oh, all right. Actually, I'm gonna eat. I got some pumpkin pie right here before I start. Cause I'll be honest, this is a long ass book, a long ass story. So I'm gonna take my time with reading it, enjoy a little bit. But does Meme have any fun plans tomorrow? Ooh. I still gotta wrap some presents yet. I've been busy all today, dude. And helping Dad assemble a big thing for my mom. Took quite a bit. Clean up the house because we got guests coming over soon, so oh yeah. I don't know, is this music? Does this music seem good? Oh, I'm at the wrong part. There we go. Let's do like right there. I think that's pretty good. Alright. But, alright. I think every so often I'll take a little break here and there. Other than that, although this music is throwing me off a little bit. 7 minutes in, 7:42. Oh, never mind. A new one starting. Perfect, dude. Perfect. Whoa. Alright. I'll be honest, I don't know how to start. I don't know if I should just go right in, hop in right into this or not. And like, stop. Well, actually, hold on. Because I didn't proofread any of this. So I got, okay, so about 19 pages? That's not bad. That's not bad at all. Although I mean, it is quite long, so depending on how it goes tonight. I do this more often, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out what seems good. There we go. There we go. Alright. Let me actually turn my headset down just a little bit. I would be listening to other Christmas music, but I don't know exactly if it's gonna be like, it's good or not. For like stream at least, but found just like a generic DMC free playlist because I don't like breaking the rules. Me with my strictness with myself. There we go. Alright. It's been a long time since I read this. I remember I having to read this for high school. That was... ah, those days, dude. Those days. Alright. I think we're good now. Okay. Stave 1, Marley's Ghost. Marley was dead to begin with. There's no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it, and Scrooge's name was good upon change for anything he chose to put his hand to. Old Marley was dead as a doornail. Mind! I don't mean to say that I know of my own knowledge what there's particularly dead about a doornail. I might have been inclined, myself, to regard a coffin nail as the deadest piece of ironmongery in the trade. But the wisdom of our ancestors in the smile, and my unhallowed hands shall not disturb it, or the country's done for. You will therefore permit me to repeat empathetically that Marley was a dead as a doornail. Scrooge knew he was dead. Of course he did. How could it be otherwise? Scrooge and he were partners for I don't know how many years. Scrooge was his sole executor, his sole administrator, his sole assign, his sole residuary legate, his sole friend, and sole mourner. And even Scrooge was not dreadfully cut up by this sad event, but that he was the excellent man of business on the very day of the funeral, and soul-minds it with an undoubted bargain. The mention of Marley's funeral brings me back to the point I started from. There is no doubt that Marley was dead. This must be distinctly understood, for nothing wonderful can come from the story of I am going to relate. If we were perfectly convinced that Hamlet's father died before the play began, there would be nothing more remarkable in his taking a stroll at night in an easterly wind upon his own ramparts than there would be in any other middle-aged gentleman rashly turning out after dark in a breezy spot, say St. Paul's churchyard for instance, literally to astonish his own son's weak mind.
I came.
Scrooge never appreciate the I came. Welcome in. Paul's churchyard for instance, literally too astonished his son's weak mind. But welcome in. How was your day? I am reading A Christmas Carol for all who's trying to relax tonight. Take the nerves off before Christmas. Just chill out. Oh yes, I was not expecting that. I was not expecting the I came. Yeah, that I play DBD also. The I came is a common thing that like a killer says in there. In that game. Oh, excuse me, in that game in particular. But that oh wait, hold up. Where is it? I don't have it pulled up yet, do I? Hold up. Give me 1 second, guys. Give me 1 second. I don't think I have it on here, do I? Where is it? Oh, thank you for that, Pat. Thank you for that, Pat. I guess I'm not. Oh, actually, I can go right to studio. Okay. I'm sorry, everybody. I got distracted there, as usual. But all right. Yeah, there you go. Scrooge. So here, let me start off back up here, since I got distracted for a little bit. The mention of Marley's funerals brings me back to the point I started from. There's no doubt that Marley was dead. This must be distinctly understood, or nothing wonderful can come from the story I'm going to relate. If we were not perfectly convinced that Hamlet's father died before the play began, there'd be nothing more remarkable in his taking a stroll at night in an easterly wind upon his own ramparts than there would be in any other middle-aged gentleman's rashly turning out after dark in a breezy spot. Say St. Paul's churchyard, for instance, literally to astonish his son's weak mind. Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name. There it stood, years afterwards, above the warehouse door, Scrooge and Marley. The firm was known as Scrooge and Marley. Sometimes people knew to the business called Scrooge and sometimes Marley, but he answered to both names. It was all the same to him. Oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone. Scrooge? A squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, conventus old sinner. Hard and sharp as flint, from which to no steel had ever struck. Our generous fire, secret and self-contained, and solitary as an oyster. The cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shriveled his cheek, stiffened his gait, made his eyes red, his thin lips blue, and spoke out shrewdly in his grating voice. A frosty rime was on his head, and on his eyebrows and his weary chin he carried his own low temperature always about with him. He iced his office in the dog days, and didn't thaw it 1° at Christmas. External heat and cold had little influence on Scrooge. No warmth could warm him. No falling snow was more intent upon its purpose. No pelting rain less open to the entity. Foul weather didn't know where to have him. The heaviest rain, and snow and hail, and sleet, could boast of the advantage over him in only one respect. They often came down handsomely, and Scrooge never did. Nobody ever stopped him in the street to say, with some gladsome looks, "My dear Scrooge, how are you? When will you come to see me?" No beggars implored him to bestow a trifle. No children asked him what it was o'clock. No man or woman ever once in all of his life inquired the way to such and such a place of Scrooge. Even the blind man's dog appeared to know him, and when they saw him coming on, would tug their owners into their doorways and up courts, and then would wag their tails as though they said, "No eye at all is better than an evil eye. Dark master." But what did Scrooge care? It was the very thing he liked, to edge his way along the crowded paths of life, warning all human sympathy to keep its distance. Was that knowing one's call nuts to Scrooge? Yeah, this music is not fitting tone at the moment, but it's Christmas, so it's okay. Once upon a time, of all the good days in the year, on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was cold, bleak, biting weather, foggy withal, and he could hear the people in the court outside go wheezing up and down, beating their hands upon their breasts, and stamping their feet upon the pavement stones to warm them. The city clocks had only just gone 3, but it was quite dark already. It had not been light all day, and the candles were flaring in the windows of the neighboring offices. Like ruddy smears upon the palpable brown air, the fog came pouring in at every chink and keyhole, and was so dense without that, although the court was of the narrowest, the houses opposite were merely phantoms. To see the dingy cloud come drooping down, obscuring everything, one might have thought that nature lived hard by and was brewing on a large scale. The door of Scrooge's counting house was open that he might keep his eye upon his clerk, who in a dismal little cell beyond, a sort of a tank, was copying letters. Scrooge had a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was so very much smaller that it looked like one coal. But he couldn't replenish it, for Scrooge kept the coal box in his own room, and so surely as the clerk came in with the shovel, the master predicted that it would be necessary for them to part. Wherefore the clerk put his own white comforter, and tried to warm himself at the candle, in which effort, not being a man of strong imagination, he failed. "A Merry Christmas, Uncle! God save you!" cried a cheerful voice. It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew, who came upon him so quickly that this was the first intimation he had of his approach. "Bah," said Scrooge. "Humbug. Bah, humbug." Is the classic saying. He had so heated himself with rapid walking in the fog and frost, this nephew of Scrooge's, that he was all in a glow. His face was ruddy and handsome, his eyes sparkled, and his breath smoked again. Christmas a humbug, uncle?" said Scrooge's nephew. "You don't mean that, I am sure?" "I do," said Scrooge. "Merry Christmas. What right have you to be merry? What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough." "Come then," returned the nephew gaily. "What right have you to be dismal? What reason have you to be morose? You are rich enough." Scrooge, having no better answer ready on the spur of the moment, said, "Bah," again, followed up with "humbug." "Don't be cross, uncle," said the nephew. "What else can I be?" returned the uncle, "when I live in such a world of fools as this? Merry Christmas! Out upon Merry Christmas! What's Christmas time to you but a time for paying bills without money? A time for finding yourself a year older, but not an hour richer. A time for balancing your books, having every item in them through a round dozen of months presented dead against you. If I could work my will," said Scrooge indignantly, "every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled with his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart. He should." Yeah, this music does not fit the vibe. "Uncle," pleaded the nephew. "Nephew," returned the uncle sternly, "keep Christmas in your own way. Let me keep it mine." "Keep it," repeated Scrooge's nephew. "Oh, wrong tone, my bad. But you don't keep it." "Let me leave it alone then," said Scrooge. "Much good may do you. Much good it has ever done you. There are many things from which I might have derived good, by which I have not profited, I dare say," returned the nephew. "Christmas among the rest, but I am sure I have always thought of Christmas time, when it has come round, apart from the veneration due to its sacred name, and origin, if anything belonging to it can be apart from that, as a good time. A kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. The only time I know of, in the long calendar of the year, when men and women seem to be one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely, and to think people below them as if they were really fellow passengers to the grave, and not another race of creatures bound on other journeys. And therefore, uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket, believe that it has done me good, and will do me good. And I say, God bless it." The clerk in the tank involuntarily applauded, becoming immediately sensible of the impropriety. He poked the fire, extinguished the last frail spark forever. "Let me hear another sound from you," said Scrooge, "and you'll keep your Christmas by losing your situation. You're quite a powerful speaker, sir," he added, turning to his nephew. "I wonder you don't go into Parliament. Don't be angry, uncle. Come, dine with us tomorrow." Scrooge said that he would see him, yes. Indeed he did. He went the whole length of the expression, and said what he would see him in extremity first. "But why?" cried Scrooge's nephew. "Why? Why did you get married?" said Scrooge. "Because I fell in love." "Because you fell in love," growled Scrooge as if there were the only one thing in the world more ridiculous than a Merry Christmas. Good afternoon, nay, uncle. But you never came to see me before that happened. Why give it as a reason for not coming now? Good afternoon, said Scrooge. I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why cannot we be friends? Good afternoon, said Scrooge. I'm sorry with all my heart to find you so resolute. We have never tried. Oh, I had to look away just for a second. My bad. I am sorry with all my heart to find you so resolute. We have never had any quarrel, to which I have been a party. But I have made the trial in homage to Christmas, and I'll keep my Christmas humor to the last. So Merry Christmas, Uncle. Good afternoon, said Scrooge, and a Happy New Year. Good afternoon, said Scrooge. His nephew left the room without any angry word. Notwithstanding, he stopped at the outer door to bestow greetings of the season on the clerk, who, cold as he was warmer than Scrooge, for he returned to them cordially. There's another fellow, muttered Scrooge, who overheard him. My clerk, with 15 shillings a week, and a wife and a family talking about a Merry Christmas. I'll retire to Baldlam. This lunatic, in letting Scrooge's nephew out, had let 2 other people in. They were portly gentlemen, pleasant to behold, and now stood, with their hats off, in Scrooge's office. They had books and papers in their hands, bowed to him. Scrooge and Marley's, I believe. I said one of the gentlemen, referring to his list. Have I the pleasure of addressing Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley? Mr. Marley has been dead these 7 years, Scrooge replied. He died 7 years ago, this very night. We have no doubt the liberality is well represented by his surviving partner, said the gentleman, presenting his credentials. It certainly was, for they had been 2 kindred spirits at the ominous word, liberality. Scrooge frowned and shook his head, and handed the credentials back. At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, said the gentleman, taking up a pen, it is more than usually desirable that we should make some slight provision for the poor and the destitute, who suffer greatly at the present time. Many thousands are in want of common necessaries. Hundreds of thousands are in the want of common comforts, sir. Are there no prisons? Asked Scrooge. Plenty of prisons, said the gentleman, laying down the pen again. And the union workhouses? Demanded Scrooge. Are they still in operation? They are. Still, returned the gentleman. I wish I could say they were not. The treadmill at the poor in law are in full vigor, then, said Scrooge. Both very busy, sir. Oh, I was afraid from what you said at first that something had occurred to stop them in their useful course, said Scrooge. I'm very glad to hear it. Under the impression that they scarcely furnish Christian cheer of a mind or body to the multitude, returned the gentleman. A few of us endeavoring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth. We chose this time because it is a time of all others, when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. What shall I put you down for? Nothing, Scrooge replied. You wish to be anonymous? I wish to be left alone, said Scrooge. Since you ask me what I wish, gentlemen, that is my answer. I don't make merry myself at Christmas. I can't afford to make idle people merry. I hope to support the establishments I have mentioned. It costs enough, and those who are badly off must go there. Many can't go there, and many would rather die. If they would rather die, said Scrooge, they had better do it and decrease the surplus population. Besides, excuse me, I don't know that. What a Debbie Downer, my guys. Jeez. But you might know it, observed the gentleman. It's not my business, Scrooge returned. It's enough for a people's. I know it's not my business, Scrooge returned. It's enough for a man's people. Mine occupies me constantly. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Seeing clearly that it would be useless to pursue their point, the gentleman withdrew. Scrooge resumed his labors with an improved opinion of himself, and in a more of a fictitious temper than was usual with him. Meanwhile, the fog and darkness thickened, so that people ran about with flaring links, proffering their services to go before horses and carriages, and conduct them on their way. The ancient tower of a church, whose gruff old bell was always peeping slyly down at Scrooge out of a Gothic window in the wall, became invisible, and struck the hours and quarters in the clouds, with tremendous vibrations afterwards, as if its teeth were chattering in its frozen head up there. The cold became intense. The main street, at the corner of the court, some laborers were repairing the gas pipes, and had lighted a great fire in a brazier, round which a party of ragged men and boys were gathered, warming their hands and winking their eyes before the blaze in rapture. The water plug being left in solitude, its overflowings solemnly congealed and turned to misanthropic ice. The brightness of the shops were holly sprigs, and berries crackled in the lamp of heat in the windows, made pale faces redly as they passed. Poulterers and Poulterers and grocer trades became a splendid joke, a glorious pageant, with which it was next to impossible to believe that such dull principles as bargain and sale had anything to do. The Lord Mayor, in the stronghold of the mighty mansion house, gave orders to his 50 cooks and butlers to keep Christmas as Lord Mayor's household should. And even the little tailor, whom he had been fined 5 shillings on the previous Monday for being drunk and bloodthirsty in the streets, stirred up 2 marrow's pudding in his garret, while his lean wife and the baby sallied out to buy the beef, froggier yet and colder, piercing, searching, biting cold. If good St. Dunstan had nipped the evil spirit's nose with a touch of such weather as that, instead of using his familiar weapons, then indeed he would have roared the lusty purpose. The owner of one scant young nose, gnawed and mumbled by the hungry cold, as bones are gnawed by dogs, stooped down at Scrooge's keyhole to regale him with a Christmas carol. But at the first sound of "God bless you, merry gentlemen, may nothing you dismay," Scrooge seized the ruler with such energy of action that the singer fled in terror, leaving the keyhole to the fog even more congealed frost. At length, the hour of shutting up the counting house arrived. With an ill will, Scrooge dismounted from his stool and tactically admitted the fact that expectant clerk in the tank, who instantly snuffed his candle out and put on his hat. "You'll want all day tomorrow, I suppose," said Scrooge. I don't think I'll have enough time, unfortunately. I think I might have to run ads, unfortunately. I will return back off to up here. So I will see you guys in a few. I don't know who all is in here, but I will see you guys in a bit. Bop, bop. Hey, sorry for being. Oh no, dude, never be apologized. But I'll be honest, I was just about to start ads, so I'm sorry. That's unfortunate, but I will see you guys in a few. I will see you in a few. Okay, oh, sounds good. Ugh, this gives me time to actually. Please. Oh, yes. Sorry, had a little seizure there. My bad. Bum bum bum. Let's see. Let's check some stuff. Bum 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 bum. There we go. Okay. I really gotta check. Let's throw this in. Change that title in a bit. Oh wait, she's done streaming? I did not know that. Kinda sad. Boom, 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 boom. Alright. Boom, boom. Back, welcome back. Is everybody else back? Question mark. I have no idea. I don't know, but I will figure out in a few minutes, possibly. Boom, boom, boom. Ooh. But how is anxiety? Are you excited for Christmas? Couple hours away? Well, maybe more than a couple for you, but like. I'll probably wait. Like, I kind of want to say yeah, but I don't know. Oh, I got you. Yeah. No, I got you. I mean, like, yeah. Even like as I'm getting older, like Christmas isn't as, I guess, like. It's not like when you're a kid where you get super excited. I feel like it's a little different when you're older. So, but not a big fan of holidays. You know, fair. Yeah. Yeah, some people just ain't holiday people. Alright. Well, I think we guys are good. So I'll get back to the reading. So I don't, I used to be, oh yeah, same here too. Like, I'll be honest, like, even my birthday, I'm just kind of like, it's another day. Like, it's like, it's nice. It's a day about you. You like get presents and stuff. You get to spend time. Well, you get to choose how you spend your day. It's not. You don't necessarily get presents, but it's just like a day to commemorate you. I don't know if it like. I mean, yeah. Holidays are just kind of like. I don't know. But I'm gonna try to stay positive. I'm gonna try to stay positive. I'll be reading a Christmas Carol. So, give me 1 second. Gosh dang it, they keep interrupting. Alright, sorry about that, guys. Whoa. Alright, we continue from the top right here, even though we read a little bit of this. God bless you, merry gentlemen. May nothing you dismay. Scrooge seized the ruler with such energy of action that the singer fled in terror, leaving the keyhole to the fog and even more congealed frost. At length, the hour of shutting open the counting house arrived. With an ill-will, Scrooge dismounted from his stool and tactically admitted that the fact to the expectant clerk in the tank, who instantly snuffed his candle out and put on his hat. "You'll want it all day tomorrow, I suppose?" said Scrooge. "If quite convenient, sir." "It's not convenient," said Scrooge. "And it's not fair. If I was to stop half a crown for it, you'd think yourself ill-used. I'll be bound?" The clerk smiled faintly. "And yet," said Scrooge, "you don't think me ill-used when I pay a day's wages for no work?" The clerk observed that it was only once a year, a poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December, said Scrooge, buttoning his great coat to the chin. "But I suppose you must have the whole day. Be here all the earlier next morning." The clerk promised that he would. Scrooge walked out with a growl. The office was closed in a twinkling, and the clerk, with the long ends of his white comforter dangling below his waist, for he boasted no great coat, went down a slide on Cornhill at the end of a lane of boys 20 times in honor of its being Christmas Eve, and then ran home to Camden Town as hard as he could pelt to play at blind man's scut buff. Gosh. Scrooge took his melancholy dinner in his usual melancholy tavern, and having as read all newspapers and beguiled the rest of the evening with the banker's book, went home to bed. He lived in the chambers of which had once belonged to his deceased partner. They were a gloomy suite of rooms, in a lowering pile of building-up yard, where had so little business to be that one could scarcely help fancying it must have run there when it was a young house, playing at a hide-and-seek with the other houses, and forgotten the way out again. It was old enough now, the dreary enough, for nobody lived in it but Scrooge. The other rooms were being all let out as offices. The yard was so dark that even Scrooge, who knew its every stone, was fain to grope with his hands. The fog and frost so hung about the black old gateway of his house that it seemed as if the genius of the weather sat in the mournful meditation of the threshold. Now it is a fact that there was nothing at all particular about the knocker on the door, except that it is very large. It is also a fact that Scrooge had seen it, night and morning, during his whole residence in that place. Also that Scrooge had as little of what is called fancy about him as many men in the city of London, even including, which is a bold word, the corporation, aldermen, and livery. Let it also be borne in mind that Scrooge had not bestowed one thought on Marley since his last mention of his 7 years dead partner that afternoon. And then let any man explain to me, if he can, how it happened that Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw in the knocker, without its undergoing any intermediate process of change, not a knocker, but Marley's face. Marley's face. It was not impenetrable shadow as the other objects in the yard were, but had a dismal light about it. like a bad lobster in the dark cellar. It was not angry or ferocious, but looked at Scrooge as Marley as it used to look, with the ghostly spectacles turned up on its ghostly forehead. The hair was curiously stirred as if by breath or hot air, and though the eyes were wide open, they were perfectly motionless. That, and its livid color, made it horrible, but its horror seemed to be in spite of the face and beyond its control, rather than part of its own expression. As Scrooge looked up fixedly at the phenomenon, it was a knocker again. To say that he was not startled, or that his blood was not conscious of terrible sensation, to which it had been a stranger from infancy, would be untrue. But he put his hand upon the key he had relinquished, turned it sturdily, walked in, and lighted his candle. He did pause, with a moment's irresolution. Oh my gosh. He did pause, with a moment's of irresolution, before he shut the door. He did look cautiously behind it first, as if he half expected to be terrified with the sight of Marley's pigtails sticking out into the hall. But there was nothing on the back of the door, except the screws and nuts that held the knocker on. So he said, "Pooh, pooh," and closed it with a bang. And the sound resounded through the house like thunder. Every room above, and every cask in the wine merchant's cellars below, appeared to have a separated peal of echoes of its own. Scrooge was not a man to be frightened by echoes. He fastened the door, and walked across the hall, and up the stairs slowly too, trimming his candle as he went. You may talk vaguely about driving a coach and six up a good flight of stairs, or through a bad a young act of parliament, but I mean to say, you might have got a hair's up that staircase, and taken it broadwise, with the splinter bar towards the wall, and the door towards the balustrades, and done it easy. There was plenty of width for that, and room to spare, which is perhaps the reason why Scrooge thought he saw a locomotive. Which is perhaps the reason why Scrooge thought he saw a locomotive hearse going on before him in the gloom. Half a dozen gas lamps out of the street wouldn't have lighted the entry too well, so you may suppose that it is pretty dark within Scrooge's dip. Up Scrooge went, not caring a button for that. Darkness is cheap. Scrooge liked it. But before he shut his heavy door, he walked through his rooms to see that all was right. He had just enough recollection of the face to desire to do that. Sitting room, bedroom, lumber room, all as they should be. Nobody under the table, nobody under the sofa, a small fire in the grate, spoon and basin ready, and the little saucepan of gruel. Scrooge had a cold in his head. Upon the hob, nobody under the bed, nobody in the closet, nobody in the dressing gown, which was hanging up in a suspicious attitude against the wall. Lumber room as usual, old fire guard, old shoes, 2 fish baskets, washing stand on 3 legs, and a poker. Quite satisfied, he closed his door and locked himself in. Double locked himself in, which was not his custom. Thus, secured against the surprise, he took off his cravat, put on his dressing gown, his slippers, and his nightcap, and sat down before the fire to take his gruel. It was a very low fire indeed. Nothing on such a bitter night. He was obliged to sit close to it and brood over it, for he could extract the least sensation of warmth from such a handful of fuel. The fireplace was an old one, built by some Dutch merchant long ago, and paved all around the quaint Dutch tiles. designed to illustrate the scriptures. There were Chains and Abels, Pharaoh's daughters, queens of Sheba, angelic messengers descending through the air on clouds, like featherbeds, Abraham's, Belshazzars, apostles putting off to sea in butter boats, hundreds of figures to attract his thoughts. And yet that face of Marley, 7 years dead, came like ancient prophet's rod and swallowed up the whole. If each smooth tile had been a blank at first, with power to shape some picture of its surface from the disjointed fragments of his thoughts, there would have been a copy of old Marley's head on every one. "Humbug," said Scrooge, and walked across the room. After several turns, he sat down again. As he threw his head back in the chair, his glance happened to rest upon a bell, a disguised bell that hung in the room, and communicated for some purpose now forgotten with the chamber in the highest story of the building. It was with great astonishment, and with a strange, inexplicable dread, that as he looked, he saw the bell begin to swing. It swung so softly in the outset that it scarcely made a sound. But soon, it rang out loudly, and so did every bell in the house. This might have lasted half a minute or a minute, but it seemed like an hour. The bells ceased as they had begun, together. They were succeeded by a clanking noise deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain over the casks in the wine merchant's cellar. Scrooge then remembered to have heard that ghosts in the haunted houses were described as dragging chains. I'll be honest, this music does not fit the feel right now. It's throwing me off a little bit. Bah humbug. Oh yes. Alright. The cellar door flew open with a booming sound, and then he heard the noise much louder on the floors below. Then coming up the stairs, they're coming straight towards his door. "It's humbug still," said Scrooge. "I won't believe it." His color changed through, when without a pause, it came on through the heavy door, passed into the room before his eyes. Upon its coming in, the dying flame leaped up, as though it cried, "I know him, Marley's ghost!" and fell again. The same face. The very same. Marley in his pigtail as usual, waistcoat, tights, and boots. The tassels on the latter bristling like his pigtail, and his coat skirts, and the hair upon his head. The chain he drew was clasped about his middle finger. About his middle, my bad. I don't know why I said middle finger, but it was long and wound about him like a tail, and was made, for Scrooge observed it closely, of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses wrought in steel. His body was transparent, so that Scrooge, observing him and looking through his waistcoat, could see 2 buttons on his coat behind. You got a photo of Marley's ghost. I'm assuming this is Scrooge. This is the ghost. Look at this. Be Marley, the ghost motherfucker. Marley's ghost. Oh yes, that gives off ghost vibes. Oh yes. All right. Well, I'm gonna drink some water real quick. Realness. Oh yeah. Throat be slightly dry. Throat be slightly dry. Alright. There we go. Whew. Oh. Okay, now we're good. Scrooge had often heard it said that Marley had no bowels, but he had never believed it until now. No, nor did he believe it even now. Though he looked the phantom through and through, saw it standing before him, through he felt the chilling influence of its death-cold eyes, and marked the very texture of the folded kerchief bound about its head and chin, which wrapper he had not observed before. He was still incredulous, and fought against his senses. "How now?" said Scrooge, caustic and cold as ever. "What do you want with me?" "Much," Much, Marley's voice, no doubt about it. "Who are you?" "Ask me who I was." "Who were you then?" said Scrooge, raising his voice. "You're particular for a shade," he was going to say. "To a shade?" but substituted this as more appropriate. "In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley." Can you sit down?" asked Scrooge, looking doubtfully at him. "I can." "Do it, then." Scrooge asked the question because he didn't know whether a ghost so transparent might find himself in a condition to take a chair. He felt that in the event of its being impossible, it might involve the necessity of an embarrassing explanation. But the ghost sat down on the opposite side of the fireplace, as if he were quite used to it. "You don't believe in me," observed the ghost. "I don't," said Scrooge. "What evidence would you have of my reality beyond that of your senses?" "I don't know," said Scrooge. "Why do you doubt your senses?" "Because," said Scrooge, "a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheats. It may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of an underdone potato. There's more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are." Scrooge was not much in the habit of cracking jokes, nor did he feel in his heart by any means waggish then. The truth is that he tried to be smart, as a means of distracting his own attention and keeping down his terror, for the spectre's voice disturbed the very marrow of his bones. To sit staring at those fixed glazed eyes in the silence for a moment would play. Scrooge felt the very deuce with him. There was something very awful too. And the spectre's being provided with an infernal atmosphere of its own. Scrooge could not feel it himself, but this was clearly the case, for though the ghost sat perfectly motionless, its hair and skirts and tassels were still agitated as by the hot vapor from an oven. "You see this toothpick?" said Scrooge, returning quickly to the charge for the reason just assigned, and wishing, though it were only for a second, to divert the vision's stony gaze from himself. "I do," replied the ghost. "You are not looking at it," said Scrooge. "But I see it," said the ghost, notwithstanding. "Well," returned Scrooge, I have but to swallow this, and be for the rest of my days persecuted by a legion of goblins, all of my own creation. Humbug! Humbug, I tell you! Humbug!" At this spirit raised a frightful cry, and shook its chain with such a dismal and appalling noise that Scrooge held it on tight to his chair to save himself from falling in a swoon. But how much greater was his horror when the phantom, taking off the bandage around its head as if it were too warm to wear indoors, its lower jaw dropped down upon its breast. Scrooge fell upon his knees, clasped his hands before his face. "Mercy," he said. "Dreadful apparition, why do you trouble me?" "Man of worldly mind," replied the ghost. Do you believe in me or not? I do, said Scrooge. I must. But why do spirits walk the earth? And why do they come to me? It is required of every man, the ghost returned, that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow men, and travel far and wide. And if that spirit does not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. It is so doomed to wander through the world. Oh, woe is me, and witness what it cannot share, but might have shared on earth, and turned to happiness. Again the spectre raised a cry, shook its chain, and wrung its shadowy hands. You are fettered, said Scrooge, trembling. Tell me why. I wear the chain I forged in life, replied the ghost. I made it by link by link, and yard by yard. I girded it on my own free will, and of my own free will I wore it. Is its pattern strange to you? Scrooge trembled more and more. Or would you know, pursued the ghost, the weight and the length of the strong coil you bear yourself? It was full as heavy and as long as this. 7 Christmas Eves ago. You have labored on it since. It is a ponderous chain. Scrooge glanced about him on the floor, in expectation of finding himself surrounded by some 50 or 60 fathoms of iron cable, but he could see nothing. Jacob, he said imploringly. Old Jacob Marley, tell me more. Speak, comfort to me, Jacob. I have none to give, the ghost replied. It comes from the other regions, Ebenezer Scrooge. It is conveyed by the other ministers to other kinds of men, nor can I tell you what I would. A very little more is all permitted to me. I cannot rest. I cannot stay. I cannot linger anywhere. My spirit never walked beyond our counting house. Mark me. In life, my spirit never roved beyond the narrow limits of our money-changing hole. And weary journeys lie before me. It was a habit with Scrooge, whenever he became thoughtful, to put his hands in his breeches pockets, pondering on what the ghost he had said. He did so now, but without lifting up his eyes or getting off his knees. You must have been very slow about it, Jacob, Scrooge observed, in a businesslike manner, through his humility and deference. Slow, the ghost repeated. 7 years dead, mused Scrooge, and traveling all the time. The whole time, said the ghost. No rest, no peace. Incessant of torture of remorse. You travel fast, said Scrooge. On the wings of wind, replied the ghost. You might have got over a great quantity of ground in 7 years, said Scrooge. The ghost, on hearing this, set up another cry, clanked its chain so hideously in the dead silence of the night that the ward would have been justified in indicting it for a nuisance. Oh, captive, bound, and double-ironed, cried the phantom. Not to know the ages of incessant labor by immortal creatures for this earth must pass into eternity before the good of which it is susceptible and all developed. Not to know that any Christian spirit working kindly in its little sphere, whatever it may be, will find its mortal life too short for its vast means of usefulness. Not to know that no space of regret can make amends for one's life's opportunity misused. Yet such was I. Oh, such was I. But You were always a good man of business, Jacob, faltered Scrooge, who now began to apply this to himself. Actually, give me. Okay, let me finish this page real quick. But oh, why don't I hear the music? What's going on here? Oh, here, let me just restart it. Okay. Let me finish this page. I had to help my mom get some ham out of the oven. Shardy. Oh, such was I. But you were always a good man of business, Jacob, faltered Scrooge. But who now began to apply this to himself? Business, cries the ghost, wringing its hands again. Mankind was business. My goodness. Business, cried the ghost, wringing its hands again. Mankind was my business. The common welfare was my business. Charity, mercy, forbearance, and benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. It held up its chain at arm's length, as if there were the cause of all of its unveiling grief, flung it heavily upon the ground. At this time of the rolling year, the spectre said, I suffer most. Why did I walk through the crowds of fellow beings with such my eyes turned down, never raised them to the blessed star which led the wise men to a poor abode, where there's no poor homes to which its light have conducted me. Alright, I'll be right back, I'm so sorry. I don't have a BRB screen. Give me 1 second. Boom. Be right back. Okay, I'll be right back. I have secured the ham. Hold up. Thank you. I was very tempted to steal a piece early, but I have to go help cook. Oh, sounds good, anxiety, sounds good. Have fun with the cooking. Have fun with the cooking. I'll see you around. If I'm not back, hey, sounds good. Sounds good. Alright. Good night. Sleep well. Dream good dreams. Alright. There we go. What did I leave off on? Right here? Okay. And we'll miss you and everyone. Miss you too, miss you too. Sleep well. Good night. Alright. Sleep. Adios, adios. Alright. Scrooge was very much dismayed to hear the spectre going on at this rate, and began to quake exceedingly. "Hear me," cried the ghost. "My time is nearly gone." "I will," said Scrooge, "but don't be hard upon me. Don't be flowery, Jacob. Pray. How it is that I appear before you in a shape that you can see, I may not tell. I have sat invisible beside you many and many a day. It was not agreeable idea. It was not an agreeable idea." Scrooge shivered and wiped the perspiration from his brow. "That is no light part of my penance," pursued the ghost. "I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and hope of escaping my fate. A chance and hope of my procuring, Ebenezer." "You were always a good friend to me," said Scrooge. "Thank ye." "You will be haunted," resumed the ghost, "by 3 spirits." Scrooge's countenance fell almost as low as the ghost's hand did. "Is that the chance and hope you mentioned, Jacob?" he demanded in a faltering voice. "It is." "I think I'd rather not," said Scrooge. "Without their visits," said the ghost, "you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first tomorrow, when the bell tolls 1. "Couldn't I take them all at once, and have it over, Jacob?" hinted Scrooge. "Expect the second on the next night at the same hour, the third upon the next night when the last stroke of 12 has ceased to vibrate. Look to see me no more, and look that, for your own sake, you remember what has passed between us." When it had said these words, the spectre took its wrapper from the table, bound it round its head. As before, Scrooge knew this by the smart sound its teeth made when the jaws were brought together by the bandage. He ventured to raise his eye again, and found his supernatural visitor confronting him in an erect attitude, with its chain wound over and about its arm. The apparition walked backward from him, and at every step it took, the window raised itself a little, so that when the spectre reached it, it was wide open. It beckoned Scrooge to approach, which he did. When they were within 2 paces of each other, Marley's ghost held up its hand, warning him to come no nearer. Scrooge stopped, not so much in obedience as in surprise and fear, for on the raising of the hand, he became sensible and confused. Noises in the air, incoherent sounds of lamentation and regret, wailings inexpressibly sorrowful and self-accusatory. The spectre, after listening for a moment, joined in the mournful dirge, and floated out upon the bleak dark night. Scrooge followed to the window, desperate in his curiosity. He looked out. The air was filled with phantoms, wandering hither and thither in the restless haste, and moaning as they went. Every one of them wore chains like Marley's ghost. Some, few they might be guilty governments, were linked together. None were free. Many had been personally known to Scrooge in their lives. He had been quite familiar with one old ghost in a white waistcoat with a monstrous iron safe attached to its ankle, who cried piteously at being unable to assist a wretched woman with an infant, whom it saw below upon a doorstep. The misery with them all was clearly that they sought to interfere for good in human matters, and had lost to the power forever. Whether these creatures faded into the mist, or mist enshrouded them, he could not tell, but they had been that their spirit voices faded together. The night became as it had been when he walked home. Scrooge closed the window and examined the door by which the ghost had entered. It was double locked, as he had locked it with his own hands, and the bolts were undisturbed. He tried to say humbug, but stopped at the first syllable. And being from the emotion he had undergone, or the fatigues of one day, or his glimpse of an invisible world, or the dull conversation of the ghost, or the lateness of the hour, much in need of repose, went straight to bed, without undressing, and fell asleep upon the instant. Stave 2. What's 27? Okay, I mean, I got a little bit yet. I'm gonna drink some agua. All right. All right, I think I'm good. Okay. All right. When Scrooge awoke, it was dark. That looking out of the bed, he could scarcely distinguish the transparent window from the opaque walls of his chamber. He was endeavoring to pierce the darkness with his ferret eyes, when the chimes of a neighboring church struck the 4 quarters, so he listened for the hour. To his great astonishment, the heavy bell went on from 6 to 7, from 7 to 8, and regularly up to 12, then stopped. 12! It was past 2 when he went to bed. The clock was wrong. An icicle must have got into the works. 12! He touched the spring of his repeater to correct his most preposterous clock. Its rapid little pulse beat 12. It stopped. Why, isn't it possible, said Scrooge, that I can have slept through a whole day and far into another night? It isn't possible that anything has happened to the sun. And this is 12 at noon. The idea of being an alarming one. He scrambled out of bed and groped his way to the window. He was obliged to rub the frost off with the sleeve of the dressing gown before he could see anything. He could see very little then. All he could make out was that it was still very foggy, extremely cold, and that there was no noise of the people running to and fro, making a great stir, as there unquestionably would have been if the night had beaten off the bright day and taken possession of the world. This was a great relief, because 3 days after the sight of the first exchange paid to Ebenezer Scrooge, or his order, so forth, would have become a mere United States security if there were no days to count by. Scrooge went to bed again, and thought it over and over and over, and could make nothing of it. The more he thought, the more perplexed he was, and the more he endeavored not to think, the more he thought. Marley's ghost bothered him exceedingly. Every time that he resolved within himself, after the mature inquiry that was all a dream, his mind flew back again, like a strong spring released, to its first position. and presented the same problem to be worked all through. Was it a dream or not? Scrooge lay in this state until the chime had gone 3/4 more, when he remembered, on a sudden, that the ghost had warned him of this visitation when the bell tolled 1. He resolved to lie awake until the hour was past, and considering that he could no more go to sleep than go to heaven, this was perhaps the wisest resolution in his power. The quarter was so long that he was more than once convinced he must have sunk into a doze unconsciously and missed the clock. At length, it broke upon his listening ear. Ding dong. 1/4 past, said Scrooge, counting. Ding dong. 1/2 past, said Scrooge. Ding dong. 1/4 to it, said Scrooge. Ding dong. Gosh. The hour itself, said Scrooge triumphantly. And nothing else. He spoke before the hour bell sounded, which it now did with a deep, dull, hollow, melancholy one. Light flashed upon in the room upon the instant, and the curtains of his bed were drawn. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, I tell you, by a hand. Not the curtains at his feet, nor the curtains at his back, but those to which his face was addressed. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside. Scrooge, starting up into a half recumbent attitude, found himself face to face with the unearthly visitor who drew them. As close to it as I am now to you, I am standing in the spirit at your elbow. It was a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child as like an old man, viewed through some supernatural medium which gave him the appearance of having receded from the view, and being diminished to a child's proportions. Its hair, which hung about its neck and down its back, was white as if with age, and yet the face had not a wrinkle in it, and the tenderest bloom on the skin. The arms were very long and muscular, the hands the same, as if the whole were of uncommon strength. Its legs and feet, most delicately formed, were like those of upper members, bare. It wore a tunic of the purest white, and round its waist was bound a lustrous belt, the sheen of which was beautiful. It held a branch of fresh green holly in its hand, and in a singular contradiction of the wintry emblem, had its dress trimmed with the summer flowers. But the strangest thing about it was that from the crown of its head there sprung a bright clear jet of light, by which all of this was visible, in which doubtless the occasion of its using, in the duller moments, a great extinguisher for a cap, which it now held under its arm. Even this, though when Scrooge looked at it with the increasing steadiness, was not its strangest quality, whereas its belt sparkled and glittered now in one part, and now in another, and what was a light one instant, at another time was dark. So the figure itself fluctuated in its distinctness, being now a thing with one arm, now with one leg, now with 20 legs, now a pair of legs without a head, now a head without a body, of which dissolving parts, no outline, would be visible in the dense gloom wherein they melted away. And in the very wonder of this, it would be itself again, distinct and clear as ever. Are you the spirit, sir, whose coming was foretold to me? Asked Scrooge. I am. The voice was soft and gentle, singularly low, as if instead of being so close beside him, it were at a distance. Who and what are you? Scrooge demanded. I am the ghost of Christmas past. Long past? Inquired Scrooge, observant of its dwarfish nature. No, your past. Perhaps Scrooge could not have told anybody why, if anybody could have asked him, but he had a special desire to see the spirit in his cap, and begged him to be covered. What? Exclaimed the ghost. Would you soon put out with your worldly hands the light I give? Is it not enough that you are one of those who passions made this cap, and forced me through the whole trains of years to wear it low upon my brow? Geez, this music does not fit the theme of this, but you know, that's okay. Alright, Scrooge reverently disclaimed all intention to offend or any knowledge of having willfully bonneted the spirit at any period of his life. He then made bold to inquire what business brought him there. Your welfare, said the ghost. Scrooge expressed himself much obliged, but could not help thinking that a night of unbroken rest would have been more conducive to that end. The spirit must have heard him thinking, for it said immediately, Your reclamation, then. Take heed. It put out its strong hand as it spoke, clasped him gently by the arm. Rise, walk with me. It would have been in vain for Scrooge to plead that the weather and the hour were not adapted to pedestrian purposes, that the bed was warm, the thermometer a long way below freezing, that he was clad but lightly in his slippers, dressing gown, nightcap, and that he had a cold upon him at that time. The grasp, though gentle as a woman's hand, was not to be resisted. He rose, finding that the spirit made towards the window, clasped his robe in supplication. I am a mortal, Scrooge remonstrated, and liable to fall. Bear but a touch of my hand there, said the spirit, laying upon his heart, and you shall be upheld in the more than this. Man, this music, dude. Okay, I might hold up. Oh, it's in I'm gonna skip this song. 2153. Okay, this one. Let's do this one. Okay, but I am mortal, Scrooge remonstrated, and liable to fall. But to a touch of my bare hand there, said the spirit, laying upon his heart, and you shall be upheld in more than this. As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall, and stood upon an open country road, with fields on either hand. The city had entirely vanished. Not a vestige of it has been seen. The darkness and the mist had vanished with it, for it was clear, cold winter day with the snow upon the ground. Good heavens, said Scrooge, clasping his hands together as he looked about him. I was bred in this place. I was a boy here. The spirit gazed upon him mildly. Its gentle touch, though it had been light of instantaneous, appeared still present to the old man's sense of feeling. This old English dude gets me. He was conscious of 1,000 odors floating in the air, each one connected with 1,000 thoughts and hopes, and joys, and cares long, long forgotten. Your lip is trembling, said the ghost. And what is that upon your cheek? Scrooge muttered with an unusual catching in his voice that it was a pimple, and begged the ghost to lead him where he would. You recollect that way? Inquired the spirit. Remember it, cried Scrooge with fervor. I could walk it blindfolded. Strange to have forgotten it for so many years, observed the ghost. Let us go on. They walked along the road, Scrooge recognizing every single gate and post and tree, until a little market town appeared in the distance, with its bridge and its church and the winding river. Some shaggy ponies now were seen trotting towards them, with boys upon their backs who called the other boys in the country gigs and carts, driven by farmers. All these boys were in great spirits, and shouted to each other until the broad fields were so full of merry music that the crisp air laughed to hear it. These are but shadows of things that have been, said the ghost, have no conscience of us. The jocund travelers came on, and as they came, Scrooge knew and named them every one. Why was he rejoiced beyond all bounds to see them? Why did his cold eye glisten, and his heart leap up as they went past? Why was he filled with gladness when he heard them give each other Merry Christmas, as they parted crossroads, byways, for their several homes? What was Merry Christmas to Scrooge? Out upon Merry Christmas, oh gosh, the inflection there. What good had it ever done to him? The school is not quite deserted, said the ghost. A solitary child, neglected by his friends, is still left there. Scrooge said he knew it, and he sobbed. They left the high road by a well-remembered lane, and soon approached a mansion of dull red brick, with a little weathercock. Hold on. With a little weathercock surmounted cupola. Oh my gosh, that's a mouthful. On the roof, and a bell hanging in it. It was a large house, but one of the broken fortunes, for the spacious offices were a little used. Their walls were damp and mossy, their windows broken, and their gates decayed. Fowls clucked and strutted in the stables, and the more coach houses and sheds were overrun with grass. Nor was it more retentive of its ancient state within. For entering the dreary hall and glancing through the open doors of many... Wait a second. Ah, sorry about that, guys. Little interruption. Alright, where did I leave off? Where's my mouse? Actually, ads start in a couple of minutes anyways. I might actually just run ads right now, and I'll probably start off like from the top right here. So I will see you guys in a little bit. See you guys in a few. Or if I can press the run button. Okay. See you guys in a bit. Let me do gosh dang it. You guys don't got the correct audio. Firefox. There we go. Okay. See you guys in a few. If you guys aren't getting ads. Wait, are we all back? I don't know. I'll wait like 20 or 30 seconds. Oh. Yeah, well, I'm back. I don't know if anybody else is though. Yeah, I gotta mess with my modeling, so with the model software. Does not work with any of my other games. Or I guess like a certain portion of it. It doesn't like working too well. Alright. Well, I think I'm gonna get back to it. Alright. I'm gonna turn my headset down a little bit. Cause listening to music and reading could be a bit distracting at times. So, alright. The school is quite deserted, said the ghost. A solitary child neglected by his friends is still left there. Scrooge said he knew it, and he sobbed. They left the high road by a well-remembered lane and soon approached a mansion of a dull red brick with a little weathercock surmounted cupola. Again, that's a huge mouthful, holy crap, on the roof, and the bell hanging in it. It was a large house, but one of the broken fortunes, for those spacious offices were little used. The walls were damp and mossy, windows broken, their gates decayed. Fowls clucked and strutted in the stables, and the coach houses and sheds were overrun with grass, nor was it more retentive of its ancient state within. For entering the dreary hall and glancing through the open doors of many rooms, they found them poorly furnished, cold, and vast. There was an earthly savor in the air, a chilly bareness in the place, which associated itself somehow with too much getting up by the candlelight and not too much to eat. I think actually the Firefox audio might be a little too high. I think that's a little better. Okay. Too much to eat. Okay. They went, the ghost and Scrooge, across the hall to a door at the back of the house. It opened before them and disclosed a long, bare, melancholy room, made bare still by lines of plain deal forms and desks. At one of these, a lonely boy was reading near a feeble fire, and Scrooge sat down upon a form, wept to see his poor forgotten self as he used to be. Not a latent echo in the house, not a squeak and a scuffle from the mice behind from the paneling, not a drip from the half-thawed water spout in the dull yard behind, not a sigh among the leafless sparrows of the one despondent poplar, not the idle swing of an empty storehouse door. No, not a clicking on the fire, but fell upon the hearts of Scrooge with a softening influence and gave a freer passage to his tears. The spirit touched him on the arm and pointed to his younger self, intent upon his reading. Suddenly, a man in foreign garments, wonderfully real and distinct to look at him, stood outside the window with an axe stuck in his belt and leading by the bridle an ass laden with the wood. "Why, is it Ali Baba?" Scrooge exclaimed in ecstasy. "It's dear old honest Ali Baba." Yes, I know. One Christmas time, when yonder solitary China was left here all alone, he did come, for the first time, just like that. "Poor boy!" And Valentine, Scrooge said, and his wild brother, Orson. There they go. And that's what's his name, who was put down his drawers, asleep at the gate of Damascus. Don't you see him? And Sultan's groom turned upside down the guinea. There he is upon his head, Serve him right. I'm glad of it. What business had he had to be married to the princess? To hear Scrooge expending all the earnestness of his nature on such subjects, in a most extraordinary voice between laughing and crying, and to see his heightened and excited face, would have been a surprise to the business friends in the city indeed. There's the parrot, cried Scrooge. Green body and a yellow tail, with a thing like lettuce growing out of the top of his head. There he is! Poor Robin Crusoe, he called him. I probably botched that. When he came home again after sailing around the island, poor Robin Crusoe, where have been you sailing? Robin Crusoe! The man thought he was dreaming, but he wasn't. It was the parrot, you know? There goes Friday, running for his life to the little creek. Hallo, whoop, hallo. Then with a rapidity of transition very foreign to its usual character, he said, pity for his former self. Poor boy, cried again. I'll be honest, this old English messing with me, dude. Holy moly. Oh my gosh. Alright. I wish, Scrooge muttered, putting his hands in his pocket and looking about him after drying his eyes with his cuff. But it's too late now. What is the matter? Asked the spirit. Nothing, said the Scrooge. Nothing. There was a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I should like to have given him something, that's all. The ghost smiled thoughtfully and waved his hand, saying as it did so, let us see another Christmas. Scrooge's former self grew larger at the words, and the room became a little darker and more dirty. The panels shrunk, the windows cracked, fragments of plaster fell out of the ceiling, and the naked lathes were shown instead. But how all this was brought about, Scrooge knew more than you do. He only knew that it was quite correct, that everything had happened so, that there he was alone again, when all the other boys had gone home for the jolly holidays. He was not reading now, but walking up and down despairingly. Scrooge looked at the ghost, with a mournful shaking of his head, glanced anxiously towards the door. It opened. A little girl, much younger than the boy, came darting in, putting her arms about his neck, often kissing him, addressed him as her dear brother. I have come to bring you home, dear brother, said the child, clapping her tiny hands and bending down to laugh. To bring you home. Home, little fan? Returned the boy. Yes, said the child, brimful of glee. Home for good and all. Home for ever and ever. Father is so much kinder than he used to be. That's the home like heaven. He spoke so gently to me one dear night when I was going to bed that I was not afraid to ask him once more if you might come home. And he said, yes, you should, and sent me in coach to bring you. And you're to be a man, said the child, opening her eyes, and are never to come back here. But first, we're to be together all the Christmas long, and have the merriest time in all the world. You're quite a woman, little fan, exclaimed the boy. She clapped her hands and laughed. Tried to touch his head, but being too little, laughed again, stood on tiptoe to embarrass him. Then she began to drag him, in her childish eagerness, towards the door, and he, nothing loth to go, accompanied her. A terrible voice in the hall cried, bring down Master Scrooge's box there. The voice, and in the hall appeared the schoolmaster himself, who glared at Master Scrooge with a ferocious condescension, and threw him into a dreadful state of mind by shaking hands with him. He then conveyed him and that his sister into the various old of shivering best parlor that was ever seen. Oh my! They gotta have an updated version of this, dude. Like this is. I'm not smart enough for this. Holy shit! Oh god! All right, well, I'm just gonna restart from there. He then best parlor that ever was seen, where the maps upon the wall and the celestial. Wait. Oh yeah, that's right. He then conveyed to him and his little sister in the various old well of shivering best parlor as was ever seen, where the maps upon the wall, the celestial and terrestrial globes in the windows were waxy with cold. Here he produced a decanter of curiously light wine, and a block of curiously heavy cake, and administered in installments of those dainties to the young people, at the same time sending out a mirage of servant to offer a glass of something to the postboy, who answered that he thanked the gentleman, but if it was the same tap as he had tasted before, he had rather not. Master Scrooge's trunk being by this time tied on top of the chaise, the children bade the schoolmaster goodbye right willingly, and getting into it, drove gaily down the garden sweep. Then quick wheels dashing the hoar frost and snow from the dark leaves of the evergreens like spray. Always a delicate creature whom a breath might have withered, said the ghost. But she had a large heart. So she had, Scrooge cried. You're right. I will not Gainsley spirit. God forbid. Forbid him, I guess. She died a woman, said the ghost, and had, as I think, children. One child, Scrooge returned. True, said the ghost. Your nephew? Scrooge seemed uneasy in his mind, and answered briefly, yes. Although they had but that moment left the school behind them, they were now in the busy thoroughfares of a city, where shadowy passengers passed and repassed, where shadowy carts and coaches battled for the way, and all the strife and tumult in the city were real. Where the tumult of a real city were, oh my gosh, was made plain enough by the dressing of the shops. There here too, it was Christmas time again. It was evening, and the streets were lightened up. Ghost stopped at a certain warehouse door and asked Scrooge if he knew it. Know it, said Scrooge. Was I apprenticed here? They went in, at the sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig, sitting behind a high desk, that if he had been 2 inches taller, he must have been knocked his head against the ceiling. Scrooge cried in great excitement, Why, it's old Fezziwig! Bless his heart, it's Fezziwig alive again! Old Fezziwig laid down his pen, and looked up at the clock, which pointed to the hour of 7. He rubbed his hands, adjusted his capacious waistcoat, laughed all over himself, from his shoes to his organ of benevolence, and called out in a comfortable, oily, rich, fat, jovial voice, Yo-ho there, Ebenezer, Dick. It's in the book. It's in the book. It's in the book. Scrooge's former self, now a grown young man, came briskly in, accompanied by his fellow apprentice. Dick Wilkins, to be sure, said Scrooge to the ghost. Bless me, yes, there he is. He was very much attached to me, was Dick. Poor Dick, dear, dear. Yo-ho, my boys, said Fezziwig. No more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Dick. Gosh, why does it keep saying Dick every sentence? Christmas, Ebenezer. Let's have the shutters up, cried old Fezziwig with a sharp clap of his hands, before a man could say Jack Robinson. You wouldn't believe how those two fellows went at it. They charged into the street with the shutters, 1, 2, 3, had them up in their places, 4, 5, 6, barred them, and pinned them, 7, 8, 9. Came back for you could go have got to 12, panting like racehorses. Hilly-ho! Cried old Fezziwig, skipping down the high desk with a wonderful agility. Clear away, my lads. Let's have lots of room here. Hilly-ho, Dick. Cheer up, Ebenezer. Clear away! There was nothing they wouldn't have cleared away, or couldn't have cleared away, with old Fezziwig looking on. It was done in a minute. Every movable was packed off as if it were dismissed from public life for evermore. The floor was swept and watered, the lamps were trimmed, fuel was heaped upon the fire, and the warehouse was a snug, and a warm, dry, bright, a ballroom, as you would desire to see upon a winter's night. In came Fiddler with the music box, and went up to the lofty desk and made an orchestra of it, and tuned it like 50 stomach aches. In came Mrs. Fezziwig, one vast substantial smile. In came the 3 Miss Fezziwigs, beaming and lovable. In came his 6 young followers, whose hearts they broke. In came all the young men and women employed in the business. In came the housemaid with her cousin, the baker. In came the cook with her brother's particular friend, the milkman. In came the boy from over the way, who was suspected of not having board enough from his master, trying to hide himself behind the girl from next door, but one, who was proved to have had her ears pulled by her mistress, and they all come one after another, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly, some pushing, some pulling, and they all came, anyhow and everyhow. Anyway, they all went 20 couple at once, hands half round and back, again the other way, down the middle and up again, round and round in various stages of affectionate grouping. Old top couple always turning up in the wrong place. New top couple staring off again. As soon as they got there, all top couples at last, and not a bottom one to help them. When this result was brought about, old Fezziwig, clapping his hands to stop the dance, cried out, "Well done!" and the fiddler plunged his hot face into the pot of porter, specially provided for that purpose again. But scorning rest upon his reappearance, he instantly began again, though there were no dances yet, as if the other fiddler had been carried home, exhausted, on a shutter, and he were a brand new man, resolved to beat him out of sight or perish. Well, I'm gonna grab some agua real quick. Hold on. Goodness. What's off right there? There we go. So I check one shin. Okay. Oh, you need to delete that. Okay. There were more dances, and there were forfeits and more dances, and there was cake, and there was negus, and there was a great piece of cold roast. There was a great piece of cold boiled. Oh my gosh! And there was a mince pies, plenty of beer. But the great effect of the evening came after the roast and boiled, when the fiddler, an artful dog mind, sort of man who knew his business better than you or I could have told him, struck up Sir Roger de Coverley. Then old Fezziwig stood out to dance with Mrs. Fezziwig. Top couple too, with a good stiff piece of work cut out for them. 3 or 4 and 20 pair of partners, People who were not trifled with, people who would dance, people who had no notion of walking. Give me 1 second. Alright. But if they had been twice as many, 4 times old, Fezziwig would have been a match for them. And so would Mrs. Fezziwig. As to her, she was worthy to be his partner in every sense of the term. If that's not high praise, tell me higher, and I'll use it. A positive light appeared to issue from Fezziwig's calves. They shone in every part of the dance like moons. You couldn't have predicted, at any given time, what would have become of them next. And when old Fezziwig and Mrs. Fezziwig had gone all through the dance, advance and retire, both hands to your partner, bow, curtsy, corkscrew, thread the needle, back again to your place, Fezziwig. Cut so deftly, he appeared to wink with his legs, came upon his feet again without a stagger. Fezziwig's ball. Holy crap. Oh, 39 of 93. Okay. 1/3 of the way there, guys. Oh, yes. 2. Alright. Excuse me. Oh. Okay. Yeah, right there. Okay. I just can't even go in anymore. I don't think. There we go. Okay. When the clock struck 11, this domestic ball broke up. Mr. and Mrs. Fezziwig took their stations, one on either side of the door, and shaking hands with every person individually, as he or she went out, wished him or her Merry Christmas. When everybody had retired but the 2 apprentices, they did the same to them, and thus the cheerful voices died away, and the lads were left to their beds, which were under a counter in the back shop. During the whole of this time, Scrooge had acted like a man out of his wits. His heart and soul were in the scene, with his former self, corroborated everything, remembered everything, enjoyed everything, and underwent the strangest agitation. It was not until now, when the bright faces of his former self and Dick were turned from them, that he remembered the ghost and became conscious that it was looking full upon him, while light upon its head burnt every clear. A small matter, said the ghost, to make these silly folks so full of gratitude. Small, echoed Scrooge. The spirit signed to him to listen to the 2 apprentices, who were pouring out their hearts in praise of Fezziwig. When he had done so, said, "Why is it not? Or why is it not? He has spent but a few pounds of your mortal money, 3 or 4 perhaps. It is so much that he deserves this praise?" "It isn't that," said Scrooge, heated by the remark, and speaking unconsciously like his former, not his latter, self. "It isn't that, Spirit. He has the power to render us happy or unhappy, to make our service light or burdensome, a pleasure or a toil. Say, his power lies in words and looks and things, so slight and insignificant that it is impossible to add and count them up. What then?" I lost where. What then? The happiness he gives is quite great, as it cost a fortune. He felt the spirit glance and stopped. "What is the matter?" asked the ghost. "Nothing in particular," said Scrooge. "Something, I think," the ghost insisted. "No," said Scrooge. "No. I should like to be able to say a word or two to my clerk just now, that's all." His former self turned down the lamps as he gave utterance to the wish. Scrooge and the ghost again stood side by side in the open air. "My time grows short," observed the spirit. "Quick!" This was not addressed to Scrooge, or to anyone whom he could see, but produced an immediate effect. For again, Scrooge saw himself. He was older now, a man in the prime of his life. His face had not the harsh, rigid lines of later years, but had begun to wear signs of care and avarice. There was an eager, greedy, restless motion in the eye, which showed the passion that he had taken root, and where the shadow of the growing tree would fall. He was not alone. Sat by the side of the fair young girl in a morning dress, and those eyes were tears, which sparkled in the light that shone out of the ghost of Christmas past. "It matters little," she said softly. "To you, very little. Another idol has displaced me, and if it can cheer and comfort you in time to come, as I would have tried to do, I have no just cause to grieve. What idol have displaced you?" he rejoined. "A golden one. This is the even-handed dealing of the world," he said. "There is nothing on which is so hard as poverty, and there's nothing it professes to condemn which such severity is pursuit of wealth. You fear the world too much," she answered gently. "All your other hopes have merged into the hope of being beyond the chance of its sordid approach. I have seen your noble aspirations fall off one by one, until the master passion, gain, engrosses you. Have I not?" "What then?" he retorted. "Even if I have grown so much wiser, what then? I am not changed towards you." She shook her hand. "Am I? Our contract is an old one. It was made when we were both poor and content to be so. Until in good season, we could improve our worldly fortune by our patient industry. You are changed. When it was made, you were another man." "I was a boy," he said impatiently. "Your own feeling tells you that you were not what you are." She returned. "I am. That which promised happiness when we were one in heart is fraught with misery now that we are two. How often and how keenly I have thought of this. I will not say. It is enough that I have thought of it, and it can release you. Have I ever sought release? In words? No, never. In what then? In a changed nature? In an altered spirit? In another atmosphere of life? Another hope as its great end? In everything that made my love of any worth or value in your sight. This had never been between us," said the girl, looking mildly, but with steadiness upon him. "Tell me, would you seek me out, try to win me now?" "Ah, no." He seemed to yield the justice of this supposition in spite of himself, but he said with a struggle, "You think not?" "I would gladly think otherwise if I could," she answered. "Heavens knows, when I have learned the truth like this, I know how strong and irresistible it must be. But if you were to free today, tomorrow, yesterday, can even I believe that you would choose a dowerless girl? You, who in every confidence with her, weigh everything by gain, or choosing her if for a moment you were false enough to your own guiding principle to do so. Do I not know that your repentance, regret would be surely follow? I do. And I release you. With a full heart, for those who love him, you were once were. He was about to speak, but with her head turned from him, she resumed. You may have the memory of what is past half makes me hope you will. Have pain in this, a very brief time, and you will dismiss the recollection of it. Gladly, as a unprofitable dream from which happened while that you awoke. May you be happy in life. May you be happy in the life you have chosen. She left him, and they parted. Spirit, said Scrooge, show me no more, to conduct me home. Why do you delight the torture of me? One more shadow, exclaimed the ghost. No more, cried Scrooge, no more. I don't wish to see this. Show me no more. But the relentless ghost pinioned him to the booth of his arms, forced him to observe what happened next. They were in another scene and place, a room not very large or handsome, but full of comfort. Near to the winter fire sat a beautiful young girl. So like that last that Scrooge believed it was the same, till he saw her. Now a comedy matron, oh my gosh, I can't speak. I'll grab some agua real quick, Shelly. Oh, there we go. All right, think. Whoa. I think I'm good. Okay. Okay. No more, cried Scrooge. No more. I don't wish to see it no more. Show me no more. But the relentless ghost pinioned him to the booth of his arms and forced him to observe what happened next. They were in another scene, in a place, a room not very large or handsome, full of comfort. Near to the winter fire sat a beautiful young girl. So like the last that Scrooge believed, it was the same until he saw her. Now a comely matron, sitting opposite her daughter. The noise in this room was perfectly tumultuous, for there were more children there than Scrooge in his agitated state of mind could count, and like celebrated herd in the poem. There were not 40 children conducting themselves like one, but every child was conducting itself like 40. The consequences were uproarious beyond belief, but no one seemed to care. On the contrary, the mother and the daughter laughed heartily and enjoyed it very much, and the latter, soon beginning to mingle in the sports, got pillaged by the young brigands most ruthlessly. What would I have not given to be one of them? Though I never could have been so rude. No, I wouldn't for the wealthy of all the world have crushed the braided hair and tore it down. For those precious little shoe, I wouldn't have plucked it off. God bless my soul. To save my life, as to measuring her waist in a sport. As they did, bold young brood, I couldn't have done it. I should have expected my arm to have grown around it for a punishment. It never comes straight again, and yet I should have dearly liked it. I own, to touch her lips, to have questioned her, that she might have opened to them, to have looked upon the lashes of her downcast eyes, never raised a blush, to have let loose waves of hair an inch of which would be a keepsake beyond price. In short, I would have liked, I do confess, to have the lightest license of a child, yet to have been man enough to know its value. Okay, give me 1 second. I need to. There we go. Ooh, excuse me. A little tired. Actually, I just realized one thing. I do have to ask. No, all tracks tagged with. There's a couple of them, okay. I'll have to figure it out in a second. Sorry everybody, sorry. But now, a knocking at the door was heard. But now a knocking at the door was heard. And such a rush immediately ensued that she was laughing. Face and plundered dress was borne. Toward it the center of a flushed and boisterous group, just in time to greet the father, who came home attended by a ladum of Christmas toys. Presents, then shouting, and the struggling and onslaught that was made on the defenseless porter. The scaling him with chairs and ladders to give into his pockets, despoil him of brown paper parcels, hold on tight by his cravat, hug him around his neck, pommel his back, and kick his legs in with irrepressible affection. The shouts of wonder and delight with which the development of every package was received, the terrible announcement that the baby has been taken in the act of putting a doll's frying pan into his mouth, and was more than suspected of having swallowed a fictitious turkey glued on a wooden platter, the immense relief of finding a false alarm, the joy, gratitude, and ecstasy. They were all indescribable alike. It is enough that by a degree the children and their emotions got out of parlor, and by that one stair at a time up to the top of the house, they went to bed and subsided. And now Scrooge looked on more attentively than ever, when master of the house, having his daughter leaning fondly on him, sat down with her and her mother at his own fireside, and when he thought that such another creature, quite as graceful as full of promise, may have called him father, it had been springtime in the haggard winter of his life. His sight grew very dim indeed. Belle, said your husband, said, oh my gosh, I'm too tired for this right now. Oh my goodness. Dang it. Whoa. Excuse me. Okay. Belle said to the husband, turning to his wife with a smile, I saw an old friend of yours this afternoon. Who was it? Oh my gosh, give me 1 second. Alright. I should be good now. Belle, said the husband, turning to his wife with a smile, I saw an old friend of yours this afternoon. Who was it? Guess! How can I? I don't know. She added it in the same breath, laughing as he laughed. Mr. Scrooge! Mr. Scrooge it was? I passed his office the window, as it was not shut up, and he had a candle inside. I could scarcely help seeing him. His partner lies upon the point of death, I hear. And there he sat, alone, quite alone in the world, I do believe. Spirit, said Scrooge in a broken voice, remove me from this place. I told you these were shadows of things that have been, said the ghost. But they are what they are. Do not blame me. Remove me, Scrooge exclaimed. I cannot bear it. He turned upon the ghost, seeing that it looked upon him with a face in which, some strange way, there were fragments of all the faces it had shown. Wrestled with it. Leave me. Take me back. Haunt me no longer. If that can be called a struggle in which the ghost, with no visible resistance on its own part, was undisturbed by any effort of adversary. Scrooge observed that its light was burning high and bright, dimly connecting that its influence over him. He seized the extinguisher cap. By a sudden action, pressed it down upon its head. The spirit dropped beneath it, so that the extinguisher covered its whole form. Though Scrooge pressed it down with all his force, he could not hide the light which streamed from under it. Its unbroken flood upon the ground. He was conscious for being exhausted, overcome by an irresistible drowsiness. And further, of being in his own bedroom, he gave the cap a parting squeeze, in which his hand relaxed, had barely time to reel to bed, before he sank into the heavy sleep. Okay, 28. Hold on. Wait, hold on. Oh no. I think, okay, this is the part I'm a little tired, so I kind of lost my place, but I think we, remove me from this place. Okay, perfect. He turned upon the ghost, and seeing that it looked upon him with a face in which, in some strange way, there was fragments of all the faces it had shown him, wrestled with him. Leave me, take me back, haunt me no longer. In the struggle, if that can be called a struggle, in which the ghost... No, I finished this. Yeah, no, I read this part, okay. Okay. Ooh. Let's keep going, that's fine. Let's go for like another hour. I don't think there's too many people in here, so I'll read a red chapter, but if I'm like too tired, then I will stop it. Oh shit. I'm a family-friendly content streamer. No swearing at all. It never happened. Nope. Nope, 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 nope. Not at all. Not at all. Alright. Alright. Oh. What was I? Slave 3. Okay. Or stave. Awakening in the middle of the prodigiously tough snore, sitting up in bed to get his thoughts together, Scrooge had no occasion to be told that the bell was again upon the stroke of 1. He felt that he was restored to consciousness in the right nick of time, for the especial purpose of holding a conference with the second messenger dispatched to him through Jacob Marley's intervention. But finding that he turned uncomfortably cold when he began to wander, which his curtains, this new spectre, would have drawn back, he put them every one aside with his own hands, and lying down again, established a sharp look out all around the bed. For he wished to challenge the spirit on the moment of its appearance. He did not wish to be taken by surprise and made nervous. Gentlemen of the free and easy sort, who plume themselves on being acquainted with a move or two, and being usually equal to the time of day, express the wide range of their capacity for adventure by observing that they are good for anything, from pitch and toss to manslaughter, between which of opposite extremes, no doubt, there lies a tolerably wide and comprehensive range of subjects. Without venturing for Scrooge quite as harshly as this, I don't mind calling on it you to believe that he was ready for a good broad field of strange appearances, and nothing between a baby and rhinoceros could have astonished him very much. Now, being prepared for almost anything, he was not by any means prepared for nothing. Consequently, when the bell struck 1 and no shape appeared, he was taken with a violent fit of trembling. 5 minutes, 10, quarter of an hour went by. Nothing came. All this time, he lay upon his bed, the very core and center of a blaze of ruddy light, which seemed upon. Okay. Should I end it here? I'm too tired for this. I'm starting to realize. Yeah, I'll be honest, I'm too tired right now. I should take the night off. Nobody else is here, so anxiety, if you're here lurking, I do apologize. I'll be honest, I'm starting to fall asleep reading this. If I had a game going, it might be a little different, but I'm too weepy right now. Alright, I'll let you guys go. Maybe, next year. Next year, maybe. Alright, adios, everybody. Adios. Or do I just want to play a different game? Friends Monster Hunter. No, I'm too tired to be entertaining, so okay. Adios.